There is an almost mystical fascination in the poultry breeding world with creating new genetic combinations, a relentless quest to achieve the supreme specimen that has absolutely everything. Many breeders, seduced by the promise of hybrid vigor, imagine that by crossing the ultimate egg-producing breed with the most imposing meat-producing breed, they will obtain an invincible offspring. They envision a bird that will grow with the explosive speed of a muscular giant and, at the same time, lay eggs with the mechanical precision of a Swiss watch. However, applied biology does not work like a blank canvas, where the best attributes are simply added up without consequences. Today, we are going to dismantle one of the most destructive and common myths in modern coops, the illusion of crossing an elite egg-laying machine, like the legendary Leghorn, with meat giants. Far from achieving absolute perfection, this clash of hyper-specialized lineages unleashes metabolic and structural chaos in the first generation. Discover exactly why this ambitious genetic experiment always results in a resounding productive failure for any farmer who seeks true agricultural sustainability. Let's begin. To understand the magnitude of this strategic error in the poultry houses, it is essential to correctly define hybrid vigor, or heterosis, and where it provides real advantages. Heterosis occurs when we cross distinct genetic lines and the first-generation offspring, F1, surpasses its parents in vitality or growth. This phenomenon is the cornerstone of large-scale production. However, hybrid vigor has a strict limitation. It works optimally when the lineages share a compatible productive goal or when the metabolic divergence is not extreme. When a breeder ignores the fundamental rules of Mendelian segregation and mixes a breed genetically designed to be an ultralight calcium reactor with a breed structured for massive muscle tissue accumulation, hybrid vigor does not manifest as a sum of virtues. Instead, it becomes a painful dilution of specializations. The result is not a super-efficient dual-purpose animal, but a mediocre bird that loses the extreme capabilities of its ancestral parents, becoming a guaranteed economic loss for any farmer seeking constant productive profitability. Before analyzing the disastrous feed conversion ratios of this cross, we must address an unbreakable rule of poultry genetics that dictates the actual physical mating structure. If a producer wishes to attempt this empirical cross, the direction of the mating becomes a matter of life and death for the animals. You must never use a heavy meat male over a pure female Leghorn. Meat genetics, whether super heavy fast-growing strains like Cobb and Ross, rustic ones like the robust Sasso, or monumental pure breeds like the Jersey Giant, produce males that develop overwhelming body mass in just a few months. A Jersey Giant male can exceed 11 pounds of live weight at maturity, while an industrial Cobb rooster quickly becomes a dense mass. If one of these titans attempts to copulate with a delicate Leghorn which rarely exceeds 3 pounds and whose structure is fine-tuned to be aerodynamic, the consequences will be catastrophic. The crushing weight of the male and his claws will inevitably cause severe spinal injuries, deep dislocations, or the tragic, agonizing death of the female. Therefore, the only biologically safe path for this experiment is that you must strictly use a pure Leghorn rooster over meat hens. This light rooster possesses a strong mating drive and will reliably fertilize the robust hens without causing any physical harm. Once the physical obstacle of fertilization is overcome, the F1 chicks ruthlessly reveal the harsh reality of early Mendelian segregation. The diligent breeder, who values biological rigor and constant monitoring through trap nests, will find themselves facing birds with profound metabolic confusion. The formidable maternal meat genetics will send constant biological signals to the chick-developing endocrine system, demanding it consume gigantic amounts of feed to rapidly build a massive skeletal framework. Simultaneously, the strict paternal Leghorn genetic package will directly interfere with this directive, prioritizing a hyperactive nervous system and a strong internal instinct for early sexual maturation that completely halts proper muscle development. The inevitable anatomical result is a highly discordant bone structure. These birds invariably develop excessively long and inefficient legs that try to support a thorax seeking to widen laterally without any biological success. The coveted breast of these F1 specimens consistently presents a highly angular and extremely poor thoracic profile, with the central keel bone markedly prominent under the skin, regardless of the high nutritional level provided. It is in the feeder aisles where this attempted crossbreeding shamelessly reveals its most painful economic failure for the profit-focused producer, the resounding destruction of the feed conversion ratio. A pure broiler will always boast astonishing efficiency, consuming roughly 3 pounds of feed to generate exactly 2 pounds of valuable body mass, completing its life cycle in less than 50 days. On the other hand, the agile Leghorn hen has masterfully perfected efficiency in the laying houses, requiring about 4 ounces of feed per day to ceaselessly manufacture magnificent large eggs. Our experimental F1 hybrid completely destroys both of these crucial metrics. These birds dominantly inherit the destructively voracious appetite of their heavy mother, but their internal physiology, strongly influenced by paternal blood, does not understand how to productively process that massive caloric intake. In the harsh reality of the field, these hybrids frequently need to consume nearly 9 pounds of feed for a single 2-pound gain. They incessantly devour pellets, but the energy quickly evaporates due to the accelerated metabolism and nervous mobility typical of light Mediterranean lineages. This effectively wastes valuable financial resources on the early development of enormous ornamental combs and wattles instead of consolidating muscle mass. By the time they reach a marginally acceptable weight for processing, the producer will have invested far more money in their daily feed than the depressing commercial value of the bird, suffering a severe financial hemorrhage in their agricultural operation. If the farmer decides not to process this inefficient meat and opts instead to keep the F1 pullets, hoping they inherit the legendary laying capacity of their agile leghorn father, they will collide with yet another absolute biological disappointment. The sexual maturity of these crossbred hybrid birds is an extremely erratic, deeply frustrating, and wildly inconsistent process across the flock. While the pure leghorn punctually begins its glorious ovulatory cycle around the 18th week of active life, the robust F1 pullets suffer an evident chronic metabolic lag. This delay is directly generated by the imposing heavy growth genes injected by their massive mother, causing them to postpone laying their highly anticipated first egg until the 26th week or even later. And when laying truly begins, the production volume never manages to be exceptional or even remotely competitive in a demanding market. A select leghorn easily delivers 300 flawless eggs annually, but the hybrid pullet, the confused product of this forced genetic clash, rarely exceeds 180 eggs during her first year of uninterrupted full productive labor. The economic tragedy is silently and relentlessly consolidated when meticulously analyzing the extremely high daily maintenance energy requirements for this low-efficiency hybrid flock over the long term. The F1 pullet inherits a substantially heavier and much more robust body chassis than the delicate streamlined skeletal frame characteristic of a specialized traditional layer. Consequently, her constant daily feed consumption is voracious and financially punishing for the entire duration of her life. Her oversized anatomy inexorably demands over 6 ounces of premium formulated feed daily. This intake is destined exclusively to sustain basal metabolic functions and thus avoid an accelerated detrimental loss of primary musculature. As a direct result, the discouraged homesteader ends up financing from their own depleted pocket the colossal appetite of a bird physiologically designed for the industrialized slaughterhouse. They do this only to receive in return an intermittent and disappointing collection of eggs, which present high shell color inconsistency on the outer shell. Maintaining these crossbred birds undoubtedly represents the purest operational antithesis of the desired productive self-sufficiency. This irreversibly condemns any agricultural project based on misapplied hybrid vigor to the most painful and inevitable of contemporary commercial failures in the world of serious breeding. Beyond the obvious inefficiency in feed consumption and the chronic delay in reaching sexual maturity, there is an alarming physiological dimension that ultimately dooms this cross. The reproductive tract of the F1 pullets suffers a profound internal metabolic desynchronization. This imbalance drastically affects the structural quality of each individual egg. Leghorn genetics are a marvel of applied biology when it comes to calcium mobilization. Their organism extracts minerals from its daily diet and internal bone reserves with unsurpassed efficiency, rapidly depositing them in the shell gland to form dense protective covers. However, when this highly tuned machinery is implanted into a heavy-strain chassis, the entire metabolism collapses under its inherent contradictions. The maternal meat genetics physiologically prioritize nutrient retention for muscle mass creation and the rapid accumulation of heavy abdominal fat deposits. This excessive adipose tissue thickly envelops the internal organs, mechanically pressing against the delicate oviduct. Consequently, when the strong reproductive impulse of the leghorn father manages to activate the ovary, the developing egg must pass through a reproductive tract severely narrowed and chronically inflamed by surrounding fat. This generates eggs with thin shells highly prone to dangerous microfractures due to deficient calcium fixation in an organism focused on protein synthesis. This imbalance exponentially increases the daily risk of life-threatening egg binding and fatal cloacal prolapse. The experienced farmer will quickly discover their coop becomes a stressful scene of constant veterinary emergencies, facing unacceptably high mortality rates because this confused hybrid anatomy is utterly unable to withstand the grueling physical demands of daily laying. The severe anatomical disaster is further aggravated when meticulously analyzing the thermoregulation capacity and general cardiovascular health of this forced genetic experiment. Light birds of Mediterranean origin possess a hyperactive nervous system and an alert temperament, keeping them in constant motion. This evolutionary trait allows them to actively forage and easily dissipate body heat with great efficiency, largely thanks to their low overall muscle mass. Conversely, industrial meat breeds are lymphatic giants, purposefully designed for prolonged inactivity, developing incredibly dense bodies that inherently retain enormous amounts of internal metabolic heat. By recklessly fusing these two biological extremes, the seasoned producer obtains an animal locked in a permanent state of severe physiological stress. The F1 hybrid inherits the massive heat-trapping body and dense feather insulation of the heavy breed, but its daily actions are governed by the relentless neurological engine of the Leghorn. This fundamental contradiction subjects the cardiovascular system to relentless tension. The heart, frequently severely underdeveloped in proportion to the colossal hybrid body size, must frantically pump blood to an immense muscular network while simultaneously responding to the constant alert signals of its hyperactive brain. During warm summer months when ambient temperatures inside the coop hit 82 degrees Fahrenheit, these heavily insulated birds collapse irremediably. They are completely biologically incapable of sufficiently dissipating the immense internal heat generated by their own conflicting metabolism. Chronic panting, severe respiratory alkalosis, and sudden traumatic death from fulminant heart failure rapidly become daily events. This tragic biological reality completely destroys any optimistic projection of profitability, leaving the ambitious homesteader with a decimated flock long before reaching its theoretical productive peak. Despite witnessing these glaring operational failures firsthand, some stubborn breeders succumb to the misguided temptation of keeping the largest F1 males and surviving robust pullets to cross them with each other. This is done under the deeply rooted belief that the second generation, or F2, will somehow magically stabilize the desired attributes, creating the perfect dual-purpose breed from scratch. This fateful decision marks the irrecoverable entry into total genetic chaos and provides the most unforgiving demonstration of the second law of Mendelian segregation applied in a working rural environment. By intentionally mating two highly unstable F1 individuals, any minimal superficial uniformity that might have briefly existed is shattered. The complex dominant and recessive alleles controlling body size, precise bone structure, and internal metabolism are aggressively shuffled and redistributed in a completely chaotic, random manner across the resulting embryos. When carefully observing the hatchings of this unpredictable F2 generation, the producer won't find a stable, reliable bloodline. Instead, they will be greeted by a terrifying mosaic of wildly inconsistent anatomical forms and varying sizes. Tiny, sickly chicks will hatch, equipped with the fragile bone structure of a light bird but tragically lacking its characteristic vitality. They'll coexist alongside monstrously large specimens agonizingly afflicted by profound skeletal deformities from their very first day outside the shell. The viable hatch rate inevitably drops drastically, and the continuous waste of expensive resources in daily incubation and intensive early care ends up economically burying the entire agricultural operation. Attempting to haphazardly create a new breed by blindly hoping nature will magically organize profound genetic disorder is to arrogantly ignore centuries of meticulous selection. If, cornered by unsustainable feed costs and a depressingly low laying rate, the producer makes the logical decision to send this highly disappointing hybrid flock to processing to recover a fraction of their capital through meat sales, they'll absolutely inevitably face the crushing death blow of this experiment. The actual dressing percentage of these confused animals is an undeniable commercial and culinary disaster. A highly competitive meat bird is genetically structured to efficiently deposit the vast majority of its rapid weight gain directly into the sought-after breast and thick thighs, intelligently minimizing unproductive bone weight. In stark contrast, the forced crossing of the sleek leghorn with massive meat breeds produces a strange animal where the internal anatomical distribution is completely distorted and commercially unviable. Upon plucking and processing the bird, the farmer will discover a massive, highly disproportionate skeleton that greedily absorbed most of the expensive formulated feed nutrients during its prolonged growth stage. The actual breast development will be depressingly sharp and extremely narrow, dominantly inherited directly from the paternal lightweight skeletal conformation, regardless of exactly how much protein-rich feed was generously provided. Much of the deceptive live weight previously recorded on the hanging scale will absolutely not correspond to valuable, marketable muscle mass. Instead, it'll just mostly be made up of enormous heavy bones, incredibly thick tendons, and voluminous yellow fat pads uselessly accumulated deep within the abdominal cavity, all of which must be entirely discarded. The technical ratio between usable muscle mass and disposable heavy bone is so abysmally poor that the final product becomes completely unacceptable for any demanding local market, tragically devaluing many long months of extremely hard work. True technical mastery in the strategic design of any profitable poultry project simply doesn't lie in recklessly playing the arrogant architect of improbable crosses. Rather, it is strictly found in the profound understanding and deep respect for the extreme biological specialization successfully achieved over decades of strict genetic selection. If a dedicated farmer legitimately seeks to achieve lasting productive self-sufficiency through raising strong dual-purpose animals, the only scientifically viable path is absolutely not to invent highly defective, unstable chimeras. The correct strategy always consists of acquiring solidly consolidated heritage breeds meticulously perfected over the centuries by master breeders, such as the majestic Rhode Island Red, the perfectly balanced Sussex, or the robust Plymouth Rock. These rustic, traditional birds possess a highly stable, predictable genome where constant egg production and the simultaneous development of a well-proportioned carcass coexist in perfect physiological harmony, never allowing one specific attribute to metabolically cannibalize the other. Alternatively, for producers focused on maximizing immediate financial yield without compromise, the undeniable solution is to maintain completely separate operational co-ops. One facility should be strictly inhabited by efficient commercial hybrids designed to reach slaughter weight in record time, and the other populated exclusively by elite laying lines seamlessly transforming formulated feed into high-quality protein with surgical efficiency. Deeply understanding that applied biology severely punishes empirical shortcuts is the fundamental first step toward transforming a simple, inefficient hobby into a true, prosperous, high-yield enterprise. High-yield poultry breeding simply doesn't ever tolerate biological shortcuts based entirely on mere intuition or hopeful guesswork. As we've meticulously analyzed together today, trying to forcefully rewrite nature by carelessly mixing the hyperactive biological machinery of an elite leghorn bird with the massive muscular structure of an industrial meat giant guarantees an inevitable metabolic disaster. You'll permanently suffer from a catastrophic loss of feed efficiency, highly disproportionate hybrid anatomy, and the rapid evaporation of all projected financial profitability. True hybrid vigor always demands incredibly strict genetic rules. Willfully ignoring these fundamental scientific principles means cruelly condemning your birds to constant, irreversible physiological stress and actively pushing your own agricultural project toward complete, unavoidable bankruptcy. To succeed operationally, you must always work intelligently, strictly respecting highly specialized pure lines, or investing wisely in proven biologically stable dual-purpose heritage breeds. Have you ever witnessed this catastrophic genetic clash occurring in a production facility? Please share all of your valuable technical experiences down below. Leave us a like and subscribe to the channel today. To your success, fellow breeder. Until next time.